Welcome, everybody, to the NFL show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your host for the NFL show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host. First up, Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great, Mike. How about you?
All right. And then, as always, we have the ghost, Anthony Cervino. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing awesome. What about you guys?
Anytime we're talking to you, Anthony, we're doing awesome.
That's great.
Rob Gronkowski is back in the NFL. Gronk is back in the NFL. Of course, the Bucs made a trade with the Patriots to get Gronk. I think the big question is, how much does Gronk have left? But I would think after a year off and at his age, Anthony, this could be a huge move.
Yes and no. I think from a football perspective, you have to be realistic with looking at Gronk. And what did Gronk look like the last time he was on the field? And he was a shell of himself up until the championship game against Kansas City. And then in the Super Bowl, he showed up. Tampa Bay is looking to move O.J. Howard, but even if they don't move him, you have a couple of quality tight ends now. I don't think Gronk is going to be asked to do what he was asked to do in New England with Tampa Bay. New England didn't have Chris Godwin and Mike Evans on the outside. If Gronk is going to be the starter, and we're going to assume that he is, he's realistically the third option in the passing game. And if Gronk is your third option, you're probably sitting pretty.
All right, Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for Gronkowski, if you can get 750 yards and 6 touchdowns out of him, I think that's pretty good production for him at this point. I mean, he's 30. He's going to be 31 years old very soon. He's been out of football for a year. I do think that taking that time off probably gives you some time to heal and get better. So for him to come back and say, I'm ready, I'm feeling good, I think even after all the injuries that he's had in the past, maybe this is a year where you can put together a season of just being healthy because you've been out of the game, you've taken some rest. So now I think you can put together a full season. And again, you don't have to be the primary option anymore. You don't have to get 1,100 receiving yards. If you get 700 to 800 receiving yards, I think you're totally fine. I think if you get that many as well, it just shows you how well the offense is working. So that means that Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are also showing up for you. And now this deal also means a lot for O.J. Howard, because I'm assuming O.J. Howard's going to be gone before the season starts.
I don't assume that for sure, because I think that they've got 3 pretty good tight ends right there. But you also could trade him and possibly pick up your running back somewhere.
But you can do that. You also go for an offensive line. There was a deal that they tried to put together a little while ago for Trent Williams by trading O.J. Howard to the Redskins. That deal fell through. Ooh. But that just shows you they're willing to dangle O.J. Howard out there if it means improving in an area where they feel like they have a deficit right now. So that's tackle, running back, defensive back. If there's a deal out there, I think they can get a really good starter in one of those spots. I would totally make that deal.
If Tampa Bay,
all right, now
I was going to say, before we move off of this, if they were looking for draft capital back for Howard, who a few years ago was a first-round pick, they couldn't get that back at the trade deadline. They couldn't get it back up until now. And now with Gronk, you look even more desperate to move him. They're going to have to get their thinking down a little bit about what they're actually going to recuperate for O.J. Howard.
Well, I think this, once again, why would it be so bad to have both of them in the offense?
You could financially keep all 3 because between Gronk's $10 million hit this year, you got Cameron Brate's about $4.25 million, and then you've got O.J. Howard, who's a little bit less than that, about $3.5 million. So they're not all adding up to huge cap. You could conceivably keep all 3. My question is, why would you do that? Because I know Howard is good, and I know he has potential. But at the same point, I think Cameron Brate's actually been more productive than O.J. Howard the last couple of seasons.
Well, Bruce Arians, I think at one time he actually benched O.J. Howard, which shows how much he thinks of him. So
but how about this? What about if you've got Gronk there, though? Maybe that gets O.J. Howard's attention also.
I mean, it could
because
be.
I think the biggest thing of all of this, when we look at it, that people miss is you talked about the outside receivers they have. They're loaded at wide receiver. The thing about Gronk is if Gronk is just 60% of Gronk, Gronk causes huge mismatches. You know, you can walk him out in the slot. And what that keeps you from being able to do is it makes it a lot harder to double team one of those outside wide receivers.
Yeah, I think Gronk opens up your offense quite a bit. My question now is, do you want, if you have Gronk out there, and even if he's not 100%, but he's still drawing bodies and stuff like that, that could open options for OJ Howard. But at the same point, I'm kind of weighing the I guess potential at this point of OJ Howard versus the guaranteed production of Cameron Brate. I'm saying if you have 3 tight ends, you're not going to play all 3 tight ends all the time. It's not going to happen.
But wait a second. You could. I mean, you could come out and you could take Gronk and put him in the slot, which creates a huge mismatch. All right? You could play 2 tight ends, and then you could put I mean, why couldn't you? You know, especially when your running game's not great.
Wouldn't it be cool? Like, I think OJ Howard could even fit. You can move him out almost and play like him receiver as well, because he's pretty taller and he's also kind of more lengthy. He's not really like a power blocking tight end. So maybe even playing OJ Howard like a receiver in some aspects. I didn't think about that. That would be an interesting offense. So that'd be fun to watch if you do that.
Well, the thing is this: not so much that it's fun to watch, but it'd be almost impossible to stop.
Yeah. What team's got the personnel to match up against that?
Well, and how about this? If you've got those 3, you could bring them in and play all 3, play one as a wing, and run the ball, especially if you have any semblance of running game. And if you don't have a semblance of a running game, you all of a sudden do there just because you create numbers in the box and you got more bodies than they have.
You know, you're talking me into this idea. I like this now. I think if they could keep all 3 and they have a plan to use them all on the offense, I think that could really work out.
I think the biggest reason why they should consider keeping all 3 is the fact that Gronk hasn't played more than, he maybe touched 15 games in 2015. He's in and out of the lineup with injuries. OJ Howard has missed 10 games in his first 3 seasons. So you can't guarantee either one of these players are going to be on the field for 15 or 16 games outside of Cameron Brate.
Yeah, but those injuries were coming when they were more of the man and they were getting the ball more touches. I mean, a lot of times you're going to be splitting up how many times they've even got to be on the field. And the thing is, with the 3 tight ends, you just do it every once in a while. The more you can make a team have to worry and prepare for something, the better it is. So if I come out there, it's the Bill Belichick concept that if I can run the same 5 plays from 20 formations. This is kind of the same thing the Chiefs do with Patrick Mahomes in that offense, where you're getting the same play, but they'll just tag something, they'll motion a guy, and then all of a sudden you're taking advantage of something entirely different that's right there. So I think those 3 guys, I mean, if you think about it, you got a tight end on each side. You got Gronk in the slot. You got Jackson outside. How are you going to cover that? I mean, because you got Gronk, who's already a mismatch. You got Brate next to Gronk. That's a mismatch. And on the backside, it's hard to rotate over because you got O.J. Howard as the tight end over there. O.J. Howard could just run a seam or an out, and he takes up the safety, a linebacker, and a corner on the backside, unless the safety was to roll over the top.
And you're right. It opens a lot of potential plays that you do. And like you said, even if you don't always use it all the time, it's just distracting them, making other teams have to prepare for something like that. And I do think, like you said, it would be an unstoppable play and unstoppable formations almost because you can't cover all those guys. And they're all big guys too. It's like Brate's pretty tall. Gronk obviously is a beast. O.J. Howard's not very heavily built, but he's very tall as well. He's still kind of lean. And a guy like Mike Evans is another guy who just got height for days. He's very lengthy, so it's hard to cover him as well. And Chris Godwin's a breakout star, so covering all those guys on the field at one time is basically impossible.
Chris Godwin plays bigger than his actual size. He actually reminds me of Des Bryant a little bit when he's running with the football.
And let's face it, most teams do not have the size to match up with that, especially the speed to go with it. The only defensive secondary we've probably ever seen in history that could do that would have been the Legion of Doom in Seattle, 5 or 6 years ago. Because most teams do not go after big physical corners, because big physical corners a lot of times don't have the hips to play at that level in the defense that you want to play in. So you're going to be matching them up with all kind of teams that are running 5'2" to 6 foot corners. And then when you put Gronk in the slot, there's nobody that can cover that. I mean, this team is real scary. And the thing is, we keep talking about they need offensive linemen. They need offensive linemen. But just with the tight ends they have now, Gronk, I know Anthony made the comment, didn't necessarily play great his last season. But the one thing he did do that last season, his biggest impact, I think, in that championship game in the Super Bowl was not catching the ball. It was blocking.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
So right now, what you've done is you've given your offensive line another blocker. And, I mean, he's a guy that you can put tight end, put his hand in the ground, and, he can either help with the tackle on the defensive end or the outside linebacker that's rushing, or he releases you just throwing the ball real quick. So right there, what you've done is you put doubt in the defense. When you put doubt in the defense is when you beat the defense, because Gronk can beat you at any time, and you have to respect that. So if he's the guy that's chipping on your pass rusher, you still got to be able to keep an eye on him, which is going to slow that pass rusher down just a beat to make sure that he's paying attention to Gronk.
Well, that's what you're going to end up doing is with all these offensive weapons is the defense is going to have to make so many decisions that eventually they're just going to run out of options. Someone's going to be open. It's going to happen. And it's the question of, can you slow them down now? That's the only thing you can potentially do against Tampa Bay's offense is, do you find a way to slow them down? Because you can't cover all those options. And no matter how much you plan for it, someone's going to come open eventually. So just the question at this point of, can you slow down that offense? And can Brady maintain his pace throughout the entire season and not digress a little bit or not regress a little bit during the actual season?
So if we have a season, the question is this, Anthony. How big would a Bucs-Chiefs Super Bowl be?
I mean, it would probably draw the biggest ratings since when? Since
I don't know. The highest rated Super Bowl.
Manning Wilson?
Well, the highest rated Super Bowl of all time percentage-wise is still Super Bowl 16. And it may break that because that's just on a share. There was less TV, stuff like that.
Was that a Cowboy Super Bowl?
No, that was the Bengals and the 49ers. It was actually a Super Bowl where you had two Cinderellas in Super Bowl 16 because people are sick of seeing the Cowboys go there and choke anyways.
But yeah,
no comment?
No.
Okay. I didn't figure there would be. How about this? Where do we see happening with Trent Williams? Because I think it's obvious he's not going to be a Redskin. If you're going to trade him, this is the time to do it. You're going to have to. So who do we see here, Anthony, as being possibilities to maybe make that trade?
What about New England? And I say New England very hesitantly because they do need an offensive line upgrade at left tackle. But this is a team that's trying to move off talent and acquire draft picks. So I say New England, but I just don't think that they're a realistic landing spot this year because I don't think they're playing to win in 2020. Sure, they're playing to win games, but is their Super Bowl window realistic in 2020? No. That this is a 6-10 roster as we stand.
Yeah, at best 6-10. If they do win the Super Bowl, you might as well shut the NFL down and just give everything to Bill Belichick.
What about the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah, if Jared Stidham's winning the Super Bowl with him. And I think the Panthers are another team that – why would you do that, though? Because they are definitely rebuilding, too. What's Williams now, 30 years old, 29?
He is 31.
31. So it's not like he's a spring chicken. I mean, for an offensive lineman, of course, he's not real old. But I would think, really, who wouldn't want Trent Williams? I mean, Trent Williams is a very good offensive tackle. So somebody's going to make – I would say Tampa Bay, but it doesn't look like they're wanting to do that. Go ahead, Sam.
I think ideally Tampa Bay would want to get him, but what about the Denver Broncos? Because you have Garrett Bowles there right now at left tackle, and he's been a total disappointment for them so far. He's committed penalties like crazy every year, and he hasn't been able to live up to his first-round draft status. So what about Denver? Because they're kind of
I think that's a great observation.
Yeah,
absolutely legendary.
Thank you, Mike. I think they're building a good offense there. I think they've got the cornerstones of a solid offense. So I think If you put him in there, it's going to be a competitive team. We like that division. We think that's going to be a competitive division. I think Denver adding some real help there at left tackle would probably be a smart move for protecting Drew Lock.
All right, real quick, we have a question, I think, from Stephen Corder, and I don't know. It just says 31 to the Browns. I don't know, Stephen, if you could be a little more precise on your question. If you're asking who the Browns might pick, but yeah, and guys, you can also go on Facebook, ask us questions whenever you want. You can also tweet to us at Grueling Truth. What's your take on Trent Williams, Anthony? I like the Broncos thing. I think that would be perfect.
I'm going to agree with Sam there. I didn't think of the Broncos initially, but I think that would make perfect sense.
I didn't either. So really, Sam, that was a good call.
What about the Jets? How about the Jets?
Why do we want to do that to Trent Williams? Do we really not like him?
Because depending on what you have to move to get Trent Williams, the Jets, they really need a left tackle. They need a wide receiver. If they don't have to give up their one to get Trent Williams, and I doubt you have to give up a one to get a 30-year-old left tackle that you have to pay, then they can go get a CD Lamb or a Jerry Jeudy and then move maybe a second or a third pick and get Trent Williams and solve their two biggest needs.
Yeah. And another rumor that I've seen, I was going to get you guys an opinion on, is the Arizona Cardinals. They've expressed interest in trading down from the 8th overall pick. I would assume that since they don't have a second-round pick, they trade down. It's just to acquire more picks to add on to the young roster, young collection of talent they've got. Do you think that would be a good move, or do you think they should stay at it, Anthony?
It depends on what they need and what they want to do. They can use an offensive line upgrade. This is a pretty deep draft for left tackle. So if you can move back a couple of spots, maybe anticipating a Mekhi Becton falling because of that whole weed thing, then you could recuperate a second-round pick in the process and still get your guy.
All right, real quick.
Move back and still get an Ezra Cleveland.
All right, real quick, let's go back to Stephen Corder. His question was, what do we think about possibly Trent Williams to the Browns?
And that'd be a lot of money going to the Cleveland, because that'd be a lot of players you have to pay on that roster. They do have a need at left tackle. That's one of the spots in the offensive line they haven't filled yet, really. So it makes sense in terms of personnel-wise, but I don't know about monetarily how that would work out. And it's also the Cleveland Browns. There's a bunch of things you have to consider with that team. They put together a lot of guys who are considered like superstars or Pro Bowl players, and it hasn't worked out so far. So if you're Cleveland, you need to look at your roster and see where are contracts working out, who do we have to pay next, and that kind of thing. Because you could really end up breaking down this team in the long run if you bring too many guys in who you eventually have to pay.
Yeah, but I think they're going to move off of Odell Beckham Jr. I don't care what the reporters are saying that it's not going to happen and they're not thinking about it. I think they're going to move Beckham, and that would open up salary cap space for Trent Williams.
Yeah, I agree. If they move off of Beckham, I think it would make sense. But I think it would make sense for probably 90% of the teams in the NFL, because 90% of the teams in the NFL don't have a tackle as good as Trent Williams. But then again, the other question is Trent Williams 31 and he hasn't played in over a year. So is it still going to be the same Trent Williams? I think that's my biggest concern there if I'm anybody getting him, Anthony.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Can you really lose that much from not playing in a year at the left tackle position?
I think you can big time, especially at 31 years old. He's not 23 anymore. He's a big dude. And when you get a guy that's well over 300 pounds, and my question is, how hard has he worked the year that he hasn't played football? And usually I'm going to probably tend towards being well over 300 pounds, that it's probably not that hard, but I could be wrong. But that would be my concern, because also I don't think we've ever heard a lot of great things about Trent Williams' work ethic either.
No, there was issues between him and Washington for forever. Now, that's not necessarily saying it's his fault. I mean, Washington's just what their organization is at this point. It's not one of the more respectable organizations. They've always created issues for the players too. So I can't put that all on Trent Williams, but at the same point, I do think there are something to be said about adding his personality to a locker room that already has Odell Beckham Jr., Baker Mayfield, Jarvis Landry, et cetera, et cetera. But,
all right, real quick, I also want to bring up to people that tomorrow night, a little bit before 8, we'll be live for the 6th annual NFL Grueling Truth Draft Show, where we'll go through the draft. Hopefully we'll have this cleaned up. It'll look a little bit better. We can actually show some video of the players as they're being picked. You guys can make comments, ask questions. We'll have maybe a special guest or two as long as we can work the video out. I got Joe Kelly may come on when the Bengals pick right at the start of the draft because they're going to pick Joe Burrow and then win multiple Super Bowls. Even though Steven Quarter, see, the interesting one, he used to be a Bengals fan, but he switched to being a Steelers fan. I know that from him because Steven Quarter, like 5 centuries ago, played football for me. So I want to thank Steven for the question. I think it was a good one. Where were we? The Arizona Cardinals. What do you think about them trading down, Anthony?
Didn't you just ask me that?
Okay, I didn't say him.
Yeah, I think it makes sense if you're going to take an offensive lineman later in the draft because Anthony mentioned guys like Urza Cleveland. There's another guy. There's other guys from TCU. His left tackle is down there. There's a bunch of offensive linemen who I think could have that second-round grade. So if you're trading down, you could also even end up with a guy like Andrew Thomas or maybe even Tristan Wirfs falls a little bit, or you get Mekhi back and drop him. So you could still trade down into the middle of the first round and still get your guy. I think it would be a smart move if you're planning the long term because I think Arizona, there's not really much to be gained from picking at where they are right now. That kind of range doesn't really have a ton of star prospects. So for them trading back and accumulating more draft picks, it's probably a smart move. And I like it as a long-term plan of building around Kyler Murray.
All right. My take on that is this. I think if you trade down and you're between 15 and 20 and you picked up a second-round pick also, I think it's a great move. Other than that, though, I would take the best offensive lineman available because they got weapons now. And the thing is this. I mean, I wouldn't be against taking another weapon in with that second-round pick because there's a ton of studs out there. And the thing that stands out to me here is the Kansas City Chiefs. I think this running backs draft, those top 4 guys are so good. I think one of them is probably going to go to where Kansas City can pick him up. So I think the Chiefs right now, even though they're picking at the end of the first round, if one of those 4 running backs is there, this team could be even infinitely better compared to what they were last year because you can go back to when they had Kareem Hunt. And I still say if Kareem Hunt doesn't get in trouble, that Chiefs team has probably won back-to-back Super Bowls right now.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point. I think he really messed them up when he went out.
I mocked the running back.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Who do you have?
I was going to say I mocked the first one Dobbins. I mocked Taylor, and my most recent one Swift. So they basically are going to have their pick. But I definitely see them taking a running back with the 32nd pick.
I think the question here is how many teams need a running back, might select a running back before they pick. So when you did your mock, and I know you both did your mock, Sam's you can find on the gruelingtruth.com. You can hear Anthony's on his show, the FF Face-Off, probably was posted this morning or the one over the weekend. But what teams do you see? How many teams do you think are looking to take a running back in the first round?
I think at most 3. I think at most it's going to be 3. Miami's 1. You might find someone to pick up some guy to pair with Jordan Howard. I think Kansas City's the other one. I think the third one, which no one really has talked about, which I just pulled out in my recent mock, could be Jacksonville. If they're looking to move on for Leonard Fournette, they might replace him immediately. It doesn't make a ton of sense, but Jacksonville doesn't either. So I could see the Jaguars, the Dolphins, and the Chiefs all taking running backs in the first round. Otherwise, not really. We've had some good running back drafts the last couple of years, so now a ton of teams need them right now.
Yeah, but I think this running back draft's even better because I think when I rated him and I got J.K. Dobbins at like 4, that means this draft's really good because J.K. Dobbins would normally be the number 1 guy, Anthony.
Yeah, but with the way the NFL is valuing running backs or not valuing running backs because it seems to be a very undervalued position, there's a chance that unless Kansas City takes it at 32, no running back is going to go in the first round.
I don't know. I think what we have seen, though, is I think running backs are valued if they can do more than just one thing. And the thing about these top 5 guys, Almost every one of them can do all those things. So they're an every down back. I think when people get scared off, it's the guy that is basically just a runner, maybe not a great catcher out of the backfield. But was Chubb a first or second round pick for the Browns?
Second.
So, yeah. But the scary thing is if nobody takes a running back and the Chiefs get their pick, that could be real scary. Let me ask you guys this. Who do you think is the best running back in this draft, Anthony?
I still think it's Swift, and I know a lot of people like Jonathan Taylor, but we had this conversation on the show. He fumbled once every 57 or 59 touches.
All right, Sam?
I still have Swift as well, but honestly, at this point, I feel like Swift, Dobbins, or Taylor, you have one of those three, and you're fine. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference in the long run which one of you guys you get. But I'm sticking with Swift right now as my top projected running back.
I think Taylor is. You don't see many guys that run that hard that are that big that can run as fast as he can run. And we'll take our chances with the fumbles every once in a while. That can be cleaned up. What else do you guys want to discuss?
There was some news that Jerry Jeudy might fall, and there's been it's been confirmed and then not confirmed that he might fall because of some knee issues he had a while ago. I don't know if either of you have seen that yet, but there were some rumors that he might drop a little bit in his stock because of the knee injuries that he's had in the past. What do you guys think about that? Do you think he'll actually fall because of this, or do you think it's just some team blowing out smoke now here, trying to lower his value before the draft?
This is usually
it could be a smoke screen because there might be a team that really likes him, so they put out this. If he falls, I mean, Judy's the best route runner in this draft.
Do you think he's the best wide receiver in the draft?
All around, I think so. I think it's very close with him and CD Lamb.
All right, what do you think, Sam?
I don't think he falls. I think it's some team just trying to put out smoke right here at the very end to try to get him to fall to them. But I think CD Lamb's the best receiver in the draft, and I'll say for the same thing Anthony said, for the all-around reasons, I think it's Lamb. Because once he catches the ball, CD Lamb can run through you. He can run around you as well. He's got everything he can do once he gets the catch. And he's very good at making contested catches. He doesn't have as many drops as Jerry Jeudy does. So I think Lamb's probably the best receiver in the draft, followed by Jeudy. And Ruggs is a distant third. Although I think it'd be interesting to see it. Ruggs might end up going before both those guys, depending on what team values.
All right, real quick, we have another question on Facebook. It says I could show it. There it is. Hey, I just learned how to do something because Steven asked another question. The 33rd overall pick in the second round is more interesting than the first overall for Cincy. But if I were the Bengals war room, I would take a more serious look at Chase Young and think about getting Jordan Love or Jake Fromm if available at 33. All right, Steven, this has to be Joe Burrow. My problem with Chase Young is this. Number one, he's not a Bosa. All right, which means he doesn't have I have not seen a lot of the ability to get skinny, beat a double team to stop the run. I question how stout he is against the run. I think he's a great pass rusher, but I think a guy that's a great pass rusher, and that's all he does, I kind of shy away from. My other question with him was his production against the better teams that they played against, because at the end of the year, it didn't seem like they got as much out of him as they did against lesser competition. So, and I think this Jordan Love, it will be a complete and utter bust in the NFL. Jake Fromm, I think, has a chance to be a good quarterback. But when you look at Jake Fromm, my question to Steven is this. Do you think Jake Fromm could ever be even as good as Andy Dalton? I mean, because I think the ceiling with Jake Fromm is Andy Dalton. The ceiling with Joe Burrow is to be the best quarterback in the NFL. I think there's a huge difference there. I actually, with the first pick in the second round, if you have a stud linebacker go down there, I would consider that. But I like Denzel Mims. I think he fits with the wide receivers that the Bengals have. I think the Bengals offensive line will be better this year from the guys they signed in free agency. They took care of a lot of the defensive needs except for linebacker. But I would look for a linebacker, the best possible linebacker, or I would look at Denzel Mims, Anthony.
What team are we on right now?
The Bengals. You obviously just are not paying any attention to Steven's question, were you? I'll take that as a no.
Well, why don't you re-ask it?
Why would I react? It was on the screen, Anthony, for like 3 minutes while I read it.
I'm not driving. I mean, I'm driving. I just walked in the door.
Jeez. All right. He said that he wants to know what we think the Bengals will do with the 33rd overall pick, the first pick in the second round. He says that he would take a serious look at taking Chase Young with the first pick and then think about getting Jordan Love or Jake Fromm if available at 33.
See, there's a part of me that thinks that the Cincinnati Bengals will do something other than Joe Burrow. It's a slight chance, but I have played the scenario out where they do get a project quarterback like a Jordan Love later. You start Andy Dalton this year and groom him for, groom a Jordan Love, let's say, for 2021.
Well, how can you do that? How can you even comprehend that? Have you watched film of Jordan Love? He has horrible feet. His feet don't follow his eyes. He's a bust. He can't read a defense. He had multiple issues personally his freshman and sophomore year.
I'm not saying I would do that. I'm not saying that's what I would do.
It doesn't matter. The fact that you would even bring it up irritates me because as a Bengals fan, I'm tired of hearing people say, why would you take Joe Burrow? Well, why the hell wouldn't you? He's the best quarterback we've seen come out of college, maybe ever. If you watched him, he destroyed, 5 top 10 teams last year? I mean, this isn't fairy dust. This is not Achilles Smith showing up playing one great year in Oregon.
You asked me to answer a question, and I'm answering a question.
Yeah, and I'm attacking you because your hero is Colin Cowherd, and that's what Colin Cowherd would have done to you right then, Anthony.
I wouldn't call Colin my hero.
But I just don't see, number one, ticket sales wise, the Bengals can't go anywhere but Joe Burrow. And number two, also from what I was told this morning, and this is from somebody in the Bengals front office that knows what's going on, Joe Burrow's already been told he is the first pick.
Okay.
And it's from a source that is very reliable. I would say at least 90% reliable because nobody's 100% reliable. But I would say 90% reliable that Burrow was called yesterday and told that he was the first pick, no matter what. So now, unless the Seahawks want to throw the Bengals their whole draft in Russell Wilson, Joe Burrow is the quarterback here. Because I think Joe Burrow is the only way I would consider trading Joe Burrow would be if Russell Wilson was thrown into the equation. Maybe Patrick Mahomes, but those are the only two guys right now that I would even consider. And I think Joe Burrow will be better than Mahomes. It may take longer to translate because he's not walked into the situation with the 3 wide receivers. What was that, Anthony?
Nothing.
Okay.
They got some Kool-Aid for you Bengals fans, huh?
You know what I got for a Cowboys fan? I got a Cowboys fan that told me
that sounds like guess what? That sounds like that word. Were you saying that Joe Burrow's going to be better than Mahomes and Russell Wilson? That's like me saying Dallas isn't going to lose a game this decade.
No, it's not, because that's absolutely ignorant because teams don't even go a whole season without it. So that is hyperbole from a guy who claims that his team is America's team, but yet they can't get out of their own damn way since 1996. And in 1993, they fired the last remaining legend they had, Jimmy Johnson, because they got an old, shriveled up owner who has too much pride to just stand aside and let somebody else do it. And this is what I said. I didn't say he would be better than them. I said the possibility is there. I think Joe Burrow, as a rookie, if the Bengals trade him wherever he goes, he's going to the playoffs. If the Bengals pick him, they're going to the playoffs. And I would say that 90% of the seasons Joe Burrow's ever in, that he's healthy the whole year, he's going to the playoffs. Dak Prescott is only going to get worse because he can't throw guys open. What you saw in his rookie season was if people can block long enough for him so he can throw darts when somebody's open, he's a good quarterback. Your Cowboys are screwed.
But why are we killing the Cowboys right now?
Because you basically killed me by saying I was drinking Kool-Aid. Now, I could also say this, since like week 4 of the college season, I've said this about Joe Burrow. At that point, I didn't know the Bengals were picking him first, and I don't care who he goes to. I'm saying he is that good. I have not seen a college quarterback anywhere near this since Andrew Luck. Patrick Mahomes, put it like this. When I say that, you laugh at it. Patrick Mahomes in college did nowhere what Burrow did. If you compare them at the same point in their career, so then why is it drinking Kool-Aid to think that will continue?
Because you're saying because of what Mahomes has done in his first 2 full seasons as a starter. It's unprecedented.
It's unprecedented. Why is it unprecedented?
He wins the MVP, follows it up with a Super Bowl. You said it yourself. If they had Kareem Hunt, we'd be talking about 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah, because of Kareem Hunt. Can't win it by yourself. And the thing is this year, Patrick Mahomes wasn't legendary in the Super Bowl. He was legendary in the last 5 minutes, which is huge. I'll give you that. But that defense won him that game.
Right. But aren't you the one who said if Troy Aikman had one of those drives, then we'd be talking about Troy Aikman in the top 10?
Well, I think this. I think to compare Patrick Mahomes to Troy Aikman is idiotic because Patrick Mahomes has been in the NFL for 3 years and he started for 2 seasons. Troy Aikman has what, 3 Super Bowl rings?
And Patrick Mahomes has a Super Bowl ring and an MVP, and to say that Joe Burrow is going to exceed that.
Wait a second. How
Isn't
about
that
this?
The same narrative?
Wait a second. Troy Aikman, his first season was 1-15. By his 3rd season, they're in the playoffs. 4th year, they win the Super Bowl. So you've also got to kind of look at where guys are landing. All right. So I think it is absolutely asinine to think, well, if Joe Burrow in his first 3 years isn't a backup for a year, and then he doesn't lose in the championship game his 2nd year, wins the Super Bowl in the 3rd, he's not as good. What about this? What if Joe Burrow by year 2 has won a Super Bowl in Cincinnati? Now, this is the thing. You keep telling me that drinking Kool-Aid. Wait a second. You say that's drinking Kool-Aid, but a week ago on this show, you said you thought the Bengals would win 10 or 11 games and make the playoffs.
Right.
Now, Patrick Mahomes in his first year, what was his record?
But I'm not saying
no. Answer the question.
That Joe Burrow is going to be better than Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson. I'm saying they're a playoff team.
Once again, you're not answering my question. If Joe Burrow takes the Bengals to the playoffs this year, that means he had a better college career and he had a better first year to his pro career. So why is it? I mean, number one, if Joe Burrow even starts his first year, it was better than Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying it's going to be better than Mahomes. I am also telling you this: if Patrick Mahomes came out of college as a guy who had a hard time hitting hot routes, still is. His other problem was overthrowing receivers. He went to Kansas City where you get the 3 fastest guys in the NFL on the same team. That's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is this. You can't judge a quarterback off of 2 or 3 years. If you did, Mark Rippon would be in the Hall of Fame. Mark Rippon won an NFL MVP in 91, a Super Bowl MVP in the Super Bowl. 2 years later, he's out of the NFL. You got to give things time. You can't just crown somebody. I didn't crown Joe Burrow. I just said he is the best, most NFL-ready quarterback that I've seen come into the NFL. When I watched the All-22 film on him on the video I broke down on YouTube, I watched 100 plays. There was not a bad read in it. Hell, there was hardly a bad throw in it. You watch Patrick Mahomes even now, there are bad throws on the hot routes, which is what he had trouble with in the Super Bowl. Now, Steven also says, I don't blame Cincinnati for setting in on Burrow, but they can't miss on the town around him and turn it into a Carson Palmer situation. I think the Carson Palmer situation is this, though, Steven. In 2005, I think the Bengals beat the Steelers in the playoffs if Palmer doesn't get hurt, and I think that knee injury affected Palmer. But the other thing I could say is this. What we've seen the Cincinnati Bengals front office do in free agency is unprecedented. So right now, they've already done more to help whoever the next starting quarterback is, more than they ever did Carson Palmer.
Right. They spent way more this year than they did in the past 5 years combined in free agency.
It's probably the
Exactly.
past
By over $80 million.
Hey, because they had 2 new cornerbacks and they got DJ Reader. They've added some major help to their defensive side of the ball.
That's a fact.
Yeah. And DJ Reader going to make all those linebackers even better. And they got rid of guys like Nick Vigil, who couldn't carry his own weight. You know, the offense, just hopefully Andre Smith's gone for good. But once again, I want to thank Steven for the question. Guys, do we have anything else before we wrap it up? I got to take my son to work. That happens on ESPN all the time at Chris Morton.
No, I think we covered everything.
No, I think we got about everything. Getting ready for tomorrow.
All right, so we're just going to come back tomorrow night at 7:55 then?
Yeah.
Or do you want to come on earlier tomorrow? Well, how about this? Anthony, are you doing an FF face-off tomorrow, pre-draft?
No.
Okay.
Maybe it's up in
now.
the air. We already did 2 shows this week already. So if something big happens between now and then, we'll probably go on. But otherwise, I'm just prepping for our draft show tomorrow.
All right, so we will be live at 7:55 tomorrow night for the NFL draft show with me, Sam, Anthony, maybe some special guests. We'll see. We got to check out the technology and get it all ironed out. I want to thank everybody for listening today. Remember, you can hear all of our podcasts on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find the Grueling Truth. So for Anthony Cervino, who you can find at the FF Face-Off, Sam Teets, just punch in Sam Teets on Twitter. He's the only one. And for me, Mike Goodpaster, you can follow at Grueling Truth. You've been listening to the Grueling Truth, where the legends speak. All right.